As such, it is fundamentally important that we remember that economic stability and growth, and with it sustainable job creation, cannot be about the political incumbent who happens to be occupying the political seat at a particular point in time, and indeed who future successors are. We must instead focus on the institutional frameworks that we have so carefully constructed as part of our democracy, and which are designed to keep us in check by ensuring that the rules of the game and democratic accountability holds firm. Dare I suggest that in South Africa, and particularly over the past decade, many of our institutions have been forsaken or deliberately weakened for political expediency. And the state transformation has become so politicized that we would be forgiven for thinking that economics is all about political power. And we are just at that point, that occupation of political office seems to be a very powerful vehicle for self-enrichment or enrichment of those who are close to those in power. But let us not fall into the trap of thinking about economics as like political power, because then transformation will be seen as a zero-sum game, where only those who are in charge and those in turn they favor will prosper. Economic development is not and should never be a zero-sum game. Indeed, let us vigorously guard against the politicization of our economy, where empowerment becomes about replacing one group of beneficiaries or business partners with another. Rather, it should be about radically increasing levels of economic participation among the majority of citizens who still find themselves excluded from the economic mainstream, and diversifying and deepening the economy through building collaborative economic networks and partnerships, and investing in new sources of growth. Indeed, this will require exceptional leadership, and that's probably a defining element of our situation as a country: the absence of exceptional leadership. A leadership that's able to rise above where they come from and understand that there is a national agenda at hand, a leadership that is able to see what lies ahead of the country and understand the context within which we're steering our development as a country. A leadership that enjoys the trust of society as a whole. That's our problem. And I think whether we can try to escape this issue, it is something that will stare us in the face all the time until we confront it. So we need bold and far-reaching initiatives that will create and reinforce linkages between large and small enterprises. Training opportunities, access to markets, mobility and skills development, and national focus on inclusivity in our country. I believe that the majority of these jobs will not come from large formal enterprises, but rather from small, medium enterprises. Firstly, the macro structure of our economy. Again, those who are going to talk about the political economy might talk about this issue. It determines the success or otherwise of our SMMEs. Secondly, our education and training outcomes have constrained SMME growth. The third factor, which either enables or constrains SMME growth, is government support. The fourth factor, which I think enables or constrains growth of our SMME sector, is the level of organization and activities within the business sector itself. Because in a very real sense, the energies and activities of the business sector and business organizations are in many ways powerful, sometimes more powerful than political leadership or even regulatory reforms or even infrastructure investment in unleashing economic and enterprise opportunities. I think the first point I wanted to make is that, organizations like AHI, you have one advantage. And that advantage is that you bring large and small business together. But the third area is the relationship between business and local government. You know, we we need to increasingly emphasize that ultimately, if you have weak local government, a local government that doesn't realize that they have to build and promote growth of entrepreneurship, but they also have to ensure that the ease of doing business at a local level is supported, then the likelihood of growing your small and medium enterprises is gone. Politics and economic development, I want to stress the point, are so inextricably connected and linked. But I guess my message was institutions and policies that ensure longevity of the latter require the voice of business in promoting governance and holding political leaders to account. We do need a national dialogue on where we should be going, as a country, because I think we must actually kind of disabuse ourselves this thing that it will be determined by the party in power, by government, and so on. Ultimately, I think, remember that we are where we are because in '94 and before that, those who led us realized that there is a need for national dialogue to resolve national problems and create a new national agenda. And they came together, pulled everybody together, and say, we'll compromise on this and that, and this is what we have. Now, to move beyond where we are now, it would seem to me, at least, because we are at crossroads. The levels of job losses and joblessness in our country is very high. Inequality is deepening. Corruption levels are very high. And you can list all of those things. It does require a national conversation, a new national conversation.